I'm happy to welcome Izzeck, our next speaker from company Freedom One. Izzeck, are you with us?
Yes, John, I'm here,
You
up and
are
ready.
wonderful. Great to see you again. You
Yes.
were with us also briefly yesterday for a Q&A session. And today you are back to tell us about the considerations around warranty. This has already been mentioned several times in today's presentation, but you're going to give us a deep dive on this. Um, Before I hand over to you, a very quick introduction about who you are. Uh, you've been working as an electrical engineer with a degree from the Tshwane University, 7 years experience in technology and renewable energy, and really have been developed an expertise in battery energy storage systems. Nowadays, working with Freedom One, which is one of the Africa-based manufacturers in South Africa. So I'm really interested and very happy to welcome you today, so that you can tell us a little bit more about your view on warranty considerations, and also share your experience to people who are listening in today and will be end users of batteries products, and what they should consider and make sure to understand when it comes to warranty. So over to you. I gave you the controls. You can share your presentation.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, John. Is it
Yeah.
just get it on presentation mode? Okay, thank you, John, and thank you for affording me this opportunity to speak at this e-conference, and I'm hoping that I would provide some insight when it comes to battery best practice to ensure optimal use or care of the battery, and also some of the warranty considerations that we need to actually keep in mind. Um, the reason why it's actually very important to ensure battery care best practices, we invest a lot of money in actually acquiring battery backup systems, and we need to ensure that we provide the necessary care. We ensure that the installation is correct, and we've got the right people to actually install these systems for us. So very critical to actually have accredited installers to ensure that obviously our installation actually meets the warranty requirements. So we also need to be able to understand the battery warranties, because some manufacturers throw in a lot of terminology and different explanations in terms of what they cover on the warranty. And if we are not familiar with the terminology used, then we might get thrown off and thinking we have the best warranty, but in effect, the warranty that we have does not meet our requirements. So it's very important to actually understand the terminology used in warranties. So when looking at the battery care best practice, there's a number of key things that we need to take into consideration. Most importantly, we need to ensure that we use a qualified installer or EPCs. There's a lot of EPCs on the market and installers. The renewable energy sector is booming, and a lot of people are actually trying to get business, and some are actually venturing in the space of installing these systems. So it's very important to ensure that when you acquire an EPC or an installer, it's someone who's familiar with these systems and has the necessary experience to actually ensure your battery care best practice. So for starters, make sure that you use a registered electrician with relevant certification. In South Africa, an electrician is classified if you've got an N6 trade test, and in order for you to issue a certificate of compliance, you need to be a registered electrician. So those are the things that we need to take into consideration when selecting an EPC. They need to have a proven track record in the industry with relevant products. So some people, they're new to the market, they don't have that much experience. This is very critical, especially when we're looking at your larger installation, your industrial and commercial application. There's certain rules and regulations that we need to take into consideration and the legal requirements. So if they have proven track record of working with these products, these systems in the renewable energy sector, then actually it gives you the edge to have the confidence that your installation is actually done properly. And EPCs who are affiliated with trustworthy suppliers or OEMs, this actually helps a lot when your suppliers are actually linked to the OEM because it translates to the level of support that you'll be getting once you've got issues with your equipment. Because now, if they have a better relationship with the OEM, then actually it reduces the turnaround time if for maintenance purposes or for issues you have on site or when we look at commissioning support that you require. So it's very critical to have EPCs or installers which are affiliated with trustworthy suppliers or the OEM. Then another very important one, the knowledge of any legal requirements in the country of operation. There's a lot of legal requirements which are put in place in the BESS application, citing the growth within the industry. So it's very important for installers and EPCs to be acquainted with the legal requirements. For instance, in South Africa, there are certain legal requirements which are put in place that the BESS systems must adhere to. Take into consideration the NRS 0972-1, which actually it looks into the small scale embedded generation system. There's the BESF as well, which caters for grid connection code for battery energy storage facilities. So we need to be familiar with these legal requirements that we need to adhere to in order for us to be able to integrate our systems with the already existing, either the transmission system or the distribution system. So these legal requirements are very important because also they touch a little bit when it comes to insurance purposes. If installations are not done correctly according to legal requirements in instances where you face a catastrophic failure, then you might be in a situation whereby the insurance not covering the cost of replacing those units. So very critical to ensure that you have you meet the legal requirements with your installation. So there are also some other installation considerations that we need to take place or to keep in mind. The battery sizing. Batteries need to be sized correctly for the particular application. When we look at battery sizing, when we're scaling up to industrial and commercial use, it's much more beneficial to use high voltage batteries, which cites the efficiency and also reduces the cost in terms of the required copper to integrate the system. Looking at the kilowatt peak, your backup time, average consumption, and your future expansion. When the battery is sized correctly, basically you know that whatever load or that you are powering, then you've got sufficient capacity to actually cater for the kilowatt peak. So in some instances, you do find installers whereby they've got a higher rated inverter with a lower rated battery, and the battery is not spec'd correctly to be able to cater for the continuous or for the peak demand. So it's very critical to ensure that the battery is sized correctly and it's not undersized for that particular inverter. Normally, suppliers or OEMs specify the the maximum kVA of an inverter that a battery needs to be connected to. So those things need to be adhered to ensure best practices. Then when looking at also the spacing around the equipment that's required, this is quite critical for maintenance purposes and also for ventilation. heat dissipation of the equipment. If you look at the images shown below, the sufficient spacing that is provided for the equipment then allows ease of maintenance and also ventilation. Then normally your inverters actually dissipate a lot of heat. So if your battery is too close to your inverter, then now you tend to actually affect the temperature inside the battery. So it's very critical to ensure that your battery and inverter is positioned in such a way that some of the heat actually is not transferred to the battery. So it's very important to ensure that you've got sufficient spacing also for maintenance purposes. We know electronic devices tend to fail, so we need to ensure that we provide ease of maintenance, which also speaks to the turnaround time or the time it takes to actually maintain these equipment, which will reduce the downtime if there is sufficient space to cater for maintenance. Very important as well to also look at the cable trunking system that's got to be utilized. So in this uh, section, we need to consider cable derating because depending on the type of trenching system that you use or cable trunking system, then it affects your cable rating. So these are things we need to take into consideration when looking at battery installation. So the temperature rise in a specific trunking system vary, and according to science standards, it requires us to derate the temperature based on the trunking system used. So it's very important. Some other countries, there are other regulations which might need to be considered, but in South Africa, we work a lot with the science standards that we need to ensure that we comply to these standards, because these actually help us to ensure that if ever we've got an insurance claim, then we are able to actually claim from them, because we know that um, we meet the installation requirements, the legal requirements, and also at the same time it ensures safety of the equipment and the installation, which is very critical and important, more than the insurance claim, of course. Then some of the best practices that we need to also take into consideration is your environmental concerns. Then here we're looking at ensuring in some instances that we've got a dedicated battery room or enclosure to control the temperature. So it's very important to have a low temperature around the ambient temperature should mostly be less than, if you ideally can keep it at around about 25 degrees, then you should be able to maintain a nice battery temperature, which is 25 or less. Then you might need to actually lower your ambient temperature to ensure that your battery is cooled enough so that you create conditions for best performance for the battery system. Then looking at the cooling HVAC requirements as well, we need to take into consideration the losses which the system experience, which translate to heat generation. So we need to ensure that the HVAC system, the BTU sizing, is correct to cater for the heat losses for the particular system. Then another very important thing is the energy management system. So the energy management system affords you the visibility to remotely control your system, to monitor your entire system and all other integrated equipment, such as your generators, your inverters, and your thermal monitor, including your fire suppression system. So this helps in terms of monitoring your entire BESS system. So this is very important, especially on containerized solutions. So we normally have projects that we offer to a number of our clients where we offer containerized solution which affords a client a plug-and-play solution. And these consist of your inverters, batteries, your fire suppression system, and your energy management system integrated into a 12-meter container. Then some of these containers are deployed in remote areas, and it's difficult to actually access these areas. You travel a long distance to actually reach the site, and it's very critical to have your monitoring system to be able to diagnose, control, and also integrate the system. So EMS allows you to actually have that monitoring ability to run diagnostic without you being on site, and also change certain parameters. If you there's a change in environmental conditions, then you are able to adjust certain parameters, and it gives you that flexibility to actually control your system. So it's very important if you want to ensure best care for your system to have it in place as well. So recently on our Freedom Light batteries, we have an integrated monitoring device that allows you to actually access the battery remotely and run diagnostic, and also do some monitoring, change certain parameters which come standard with the battery. So you don't really need an additional EMS for that particular battery to be able to have remote access and actually provide the necessary support. So those are the things one needs to take into consideration when looking at the type of battery manufacturer that you actually want to consider when looking at installing a best solution. Then we have covered the best practices that we need to take into consideration when actually installing best systems. So now we want to understand the warranty document. So it's they use a lot of terminology that we need to understand in order for us to ensure that whatever we're actually investing in, it's actually it justifies the initial capital that's actually required to source these equipment, because they're quite expensive to actually deploy. So when looking at some of the terminologies that you'll find in the warranty document is your depth of discharge. I think a number of presenters actually covered the depth of discharge, where we looking at the percentage of a battery capacity that has been discharged compared to its total capacity. So in relation to its total capacity. That's what we mean when we're looking at the depth of discharge. Then your state of charge, which is your normally abbreviated SOC, indicates the current charge level in the battery relative to its total capacity, and is expressed as a percentage. So those terminologies we need to be familiar with. Normally, they appear on the warranty documents. The C rating as well, the rate at which a battery can be charged or discharged relative to its capacity. So we need to consider limitations which are stipulated on the manufacturer data sheet and the warranty document, which honestly translate to the charge time during load shedding that which we need to consider when looking at the C rating. So when speccing your system, you need to look at the average continuous discharge of your load and ensure that it's within the battery C rating. Most importantly, if your peak load is determined, then your battery can be sized correctly to ensure that it caters also for your peak load. And during that peak load, the discharge from your battery is not actually above your C rating. So it's very important when sizing the battery to take into consideration that C rating, because normally appears in the warranty document. And if the battery is operated uh, outside the stipulated limitations in terms of the battery C rating, then it tends to void the warranty. Then the rated continuous discharge on manufacturer datasheet, basically, it makes it much more easier to understand um, your load requirements when looking at the continuous discharge, which is stipulated by the manufacturer on the datasheet. So those are things that you need to look at and be familiar with when looking at the battery datasheet, so that you ensure that whatever is covered on the warranty, then you are not operating the battery outside its prescribed limitations. Then understanding warranty, there's two different terms that they normally use, the life cycle. The life cycle actually refers to the expected lifespan of the battery, typically measured in the number of cycles it can undergo before it reaches its end of life. So most battery manufacturers, they stipulate the number of cycles the battery can generate. Then after that, we know that the battery has actually reached its end of lifespan. Then we also look at the battery warranty uh, as well, which specifies the guarantee provided by the manufacturer based on the number of cycles the battery can complete or a specific period of time. So it refers to the battery performance, the manufacturer assuring you that the battery should be able to perform according to the specified cycles. Or then those are translated into years, then during which the battery is expected to perform and to certain standards. And if the battery does not meet those expected performance standard, then the manufacturer would replace or repair that particular unit. Then you also have a term used, the retained capacity, which is at the end of the warranty period. You're looking at what are you expected, or the expected percentage of the battery original capacity that remains after the warranty period. So those are some of the things that we actually need to look at when in order for us to understand the whole warranty document. Then some of the warranty considerations that we need to take into consideration, excuse the duplication there, but it's the ambient temperature. Ambient temperature, very important because it affects the cell degradation. So if you're operating your battery on a higher ambient temperature than what is stipulated on the warranty document, then you might find that you actually voiding your warranty. So it's very important to ensure that your battery is in a controlled environment. You're able to control the ambient temperature to ensure that you do not void the warranty. So normally the warranty specifies um, the battery environmental conditions that one needs to take into consideration. Then your average DOD, which is your depth of discharge. The battery manufacturers, they specify up to what percentage the battery should be discharged on a continuous basis or on a daily basis. Then some batteries, they specify that the battery can be discharged to a DOD, which is even higher than what is stipulated on the data sheet. But they do also specify the time, or in percentage, in terms of the battery should not spend more than 10% of its lifespan on a specific DOD. Then it allows clients the flexibility in instances whereby you've got extended outage. If you've got an 80% DOD, but the battery allows you to do a 90% DOD, if you have an extended outage, then it gives you that 10% tolerance that you have. Then it actually helps in terms of keeping your system live during that time. But it's very important to understand also what is stipulated on the warranty document. If the manufacturer specify that a certain percentage of the battery lifetime is not supposed to be spent on a higher DOD, then we need to take that into consideration as well. Then incorrect installation, if the system is not installed correctly, that might also void the warranty. So we need to take into consideration the OEM installation instructions and ensure that we adhere to that. Then some of the things which are not covered by the warranty, which we need to take into consideration, which this comes into play when you've got your insurance, then mainly they do cover these damages relating to your lightning strike, your surges, or your external causes. So very important, if your system is installed correctly and adheres to the legal requirement, when you experience these damages, then it's much more easier for you to actually claim from your insurance to actually cover the cost of actually replacing your equipment. Then you also need to understand the components covered under warranty. So most manufacturers, you've got a nice warranty document with a number of cycles that you can actually accumulate on the battery, and they guarantee you that if you haven't exceeded these cycles for a specified years, will cover you for the replacement cost or for repairing your unit. But you also need to understand, what are they repairing? What components are covered by the warranty? You'd find that in some instances, the warranty is referencing the cells. In some instances, there's other components which are integrated together to form the entire battery system. So we need to understand what is covered under warranty to be certain that we understand the warranty document. Also, when looking at the warranty document, the manufacturer guarantees that they will be able to assist and help you in event of the equipment not actually performing optimally. But we also need to look at the turnaround time it actually takes for the manufacturer to assist you, which is very important now when looking at your local support. So there is a number of places across the world where you can actually source batteries today. But the very important thing that you need to take into consideration is the local support that you'll be getting. The manufacturer will guarantee you and say, this is the warranty in place, will help you, but what is the turnaround time in terms of getting that support from the manufacturer in terms of troubleshooting the system, repairing, or doing a swap out? The remote support that you're getting from the manufacturer. In some instances, you've got an issue on site, you require immediate intervention. If the systems allow you to have remote access, then it makes ease of maintenance or troubleshooting, or the fault detection becomes a bit more quicker, which reduces the turnaround time to actually bring back your system online. Then your standby support. Equipments don't choose when to fail. They don't just fail on a weekly working days in terms Monday to Friday. Sometimes they fail on Christmas Day, and sometimes they fail on the weekend on a public holiday. And you need to understand the standby support that you're getting from your manufacturer. So all these 3 points which I've mentioned, it's something that Freedom One actually supports with local support that you'll get. We've got partners in Africa as well, which can actually assist in resolving your issue, quick turnaround time, remote support, which I've mentioned, that comes with our battery, which allows us access to the system to be able to diagnose it and offer quick support and to reduce the turnaround time to actually bring the system online, and also the standby support that we have in place in terms of helping our customer, ensuring that even in those situations whereby on a public holiday and Saturday, Sunday, then we have someone in place to actually available to support and resolve the client issues. So that's me for the warranty consideration and battery.
Thank you very much,
You
Izzeck.
actually managed to gain more insight.
Yes, yes, thanks. Thanks a lot. Very comprehensive presentation. And I think if there was still any doubt about the among the listeners, I think you have made your case that if anybody has a question about warranty, you are the go-to person right now, because really covering a lot of aspects. Um, We've run a little bit over time. That's okay. But so I'll ask you for the same as I asked Faris. I'm going to shoot you a few questions. Let's try to keep the answers short and sweet so we can address as many of them as possible. Um, First question about the legal requirements that you mentioned, very important indeed. But then again, in many African countries, there are no such legal requirements. What happens then?
So mostly, if you look at the legal requirements that we have, especially in South Africa, they reference some of the international standards that are in place that one might actually pull in to ensure that, to a certain degree, they offer best installation practices. So in most cases, local countries should have some form of although they might not be that explicit, but they will have some form of requirements that it's minimum requirements in order to adhere to regulations. But mostly the insurance will stipulate in terms of up to what degree and what legal requirements the installer needs to take into consideration in terms of being able to be covered by the insurance policies. So there is information out there, and there are relevant platforms and bodies that we can approach to ensure that we are compliant.
Next question from Ivan. How is degradation of BES addressed in the warranty?
So mostly the manufacturer will stipulate in terms of the number of cycles that the battery needs to be able to perform. Uh, So the number of cycles will determine the performance of the battery. So in some instances, they would mention that if the performance of the battery is does not meet the specified or the stipulated how can I put it, the stipulated standard, then the manufacturer can actually do a test in terms of if the battery cannot actually produce the capacity or a specified capacity within its life cycle, then in certain instances, replacing of some of the cells will need to take place in order to ensure that the battery can perform optimally within its lifespan. So there are a number of techniques which it varies depending from manufacturer to manufacturer in terms of how they gauge the performance of the battery. Some will say that within its lifespan, the battery should be able to produce a certain capacity of its maximum or original capacity within its lifespan. And if the battery cannot actually produce that specified capacity, then the manufacturer now needs to actually either replace, repair, or consider changing some of the cells which have actually degraded.
Mhm. Switching to a completely different topic, you mentioned something about cable derating. Personally, this is the first time I hear about this. Can you please explain what this is again and how this impacts the
Uh,
BES installation?
so when you looking at cable derating, the type of environment in which you lay your cables um, affects the temperature of the cable. So when the current flows within the cable, there's a temperature rise. So if the ambient temperature is high, the temperature rise within the cable becomes higher. The more current flows in it. So the more current flows, you experience more your IR losses are higher at higher currents. Then because your current value is the one that actually varies depending on your load discharge. So in order to ensure that the cable is rated sufficiently to carry the current without actually compromising the insulation or actually expediting the degradation of the insulation, then you need to derate your cable. So meaning that you might need to find a higher spec cable that will be able to actually sustain those temperatures and safely actually provide some degree of safety within your installation. So in most cases, there is in South Africa, the SANS law actually stipulates in terms of how we need to derate cables depending on the application, the type of cable, and also the cable manufacturer also stipulates some derating factors that we need to take into consideration depending on the environment, the trenching or the trunking system that we actually using.
Very clear, thank you. Another question from Ozaj is still about electrical installation. It's more of a experience of his, from what I understand. I saying like often the existing electrical system and the quality of it is overlooked, particularly in residential installations. You may have a very qualified installer installing the greatest BES equipment possible, but if the original electrical system is somehow faulty, this can be a risk and this can affect even the best possible installation. What is your experience with this, and do you see any kind of solution?
Yeah, I think the best solution is to make the client aware of um, the problems that you actually have identified and what steps needs to take place in order for them to rectify that. Because the problem is when these issues are not rectified, then it affects the stability of the best system that you are actually integrating. And in most cases, that normally comes back to the installer, which also translates to cost, because clients, remember, they don't understand the best system. Whenever they've got issues, they will think of the last person who did the installation and will constantly say to you, I've got an issue with this, my system is doing this. Then basically, by not resolving it at that particular time, you're carrying the problem with you forward, and it's constantly going to follow you throughout. And you constantly will have to prove to the client that it is not your system, but is already existing reticulation that actually is causing these issues. So it's very important when we're doing an installation, when we identify these problems, we also present measures to actually to rectify them to the client so that he's aware in terms of what necessary steps they need to take in order to ensure that the full integrated system is able to meet the client's expectations.
Then my last question to you today, on one of your pictures, I had the feeling that one installation was done in a basement, and we've been talking about the importance of temperature control, stable temperature. My perception of digging underground and being in a basement is that temperature is more stable there. So my question is it actually a good idea to install a storage system in a basement, or counterintuitively, it's actually a bad idea because other problems arise from this?
Look, there's a number of considerations that one needs to actually look at. For instance, um, we're not only looking at it from the ideal environmental conditions for the battery in terms of how cool it's going to be and all that, but we need to also look at it from the risk point of view. I mean, having a nice building with lithium-ion batteries at the bottom of the basement, then you need to consider, what if I have a fire and all those things, and you need to put risk mitigation processes or steps in place to ensure how you actually handle these risks, and not only look at it from a cost cost in terms of a point of view only. So there are installations whereby you have the best system in the basement, but also the risk that comes with that needs to be taken into consideration as well. So the best application will be to have containerized solution. Then in such instances, you actually limiting the fire risk into the container. You can also have it in a basement and maybe employ strategies such as fire containment enclosures, and but in such instances, you would still need to actually incorporate some cooling, because now if you are in an enclosed container or some enclosure, then obviously there's heat generation, and which is the airflow which was provided by the basement or the cooling vent will not be applicable in such instances.
Very clear. Well, thank you very much, Izzeck.